Health isn't expensive, being sick is. Reuben, 39, lived in London and ran on ambition, Pret sandwiches, and a quiet kind of denial. A high-earning consultant with a calendar that looked like a game of Tetris gone wrong, he prided himself on being always available. His morning started with a 5-shot flat white. His nights ended with client messages from 3 different time zones. Lunch was whatever he could grab between calls. Dinner? Usually a lukewarm Deliveroo, half-eaten during a Zoom meeting. He told himself he didn't have time for checkups, or workouts, or anything that didn't involve moving the needle. Why go to a GP when WebMD exists, he once joked. And gym memberships? I get my cardio running for the overground. His fridge held almond milk he never touched. His cabinet had unopened vitamins from last winter. His phone counted his step, she just never looked. Reuben hadn't seen a doctor in years, not because of money, but because it didn't seem urgent. Nothing hurt badly, no bones broken. So, he kept going. The occasional headache? Just dehydration. The stiff back? Probably the chair. Brain fog? Burnout came with the territory. Health food aisles? He avoided them. Yoga? Not for him. He stretched once a month, usually reaching for a charger under his desk. To him, resilience meant pushing through. Rest was a luxury. Weekends were for catching up on work, emails, and the ever-growing cleanish laundry pile. Then came the fatigue, not the kind you sleep off, the kind that lingers, the kind that makes your body feel heavier than it should. But Reuben brushed it off, like always. He liked it when people called him a machine. Machines get things done, and besides, machines don't get sick, do they? Reuben woke up to sunlight hitting his face and a dozen missed calls. 10:40, 2 a.m. The pitch meeting was at 9:00. His calendar notification blinked like a guilt trip. The one meeting he couldn't afford to miss, and he'd slept through it. After nearly 10 hours of sleep, he sat up, heart racing. His body felt like it had been packed with sand. Heavy limbs, dry mouth. Mind foggy, like a browser with 37 tabs open but nothing loading. He grabbed his phone and called the client, leaving a voicemail that sounded like a stranger was using his voice. At first, he blamed burnout. It was a late week, after all. 3 deadlines, 2 last-minute slide decks, and 1 cancelled Deliveroo that left him eating crackers for dinner. But the next day, something weird happened. During a client call, Reuben couldn't remember the word for invoice. He stammered mid-sentence. "We'll get that. The cost sheet thing invoice. Yeah, we'll get that sent by Monday." He laughed it off, blamed it on brain fog, and tried to move on. But it kept happening. Simple things, mixing up names, forgetting what he walked into the kitchen for. He started keeping notes on his phone just to stay on top of basic stuff. Then his mate Jordan said it. "Bruv, you all right? You look knackered." Reuben grinned. "Just a heavy week." He didn't mention the shortness of breath climbing the stairs to his flat, or how his chest felt tight most evenings like someone had set a small brick right under his collarbone. He dismissed it all. Too much coffee, not enough sleep. I'll take a paracetamol. And so he did daily. His evenings became a cycle: work late, eat late, fall asleep watching Netflix, wake up groggy, repeat. He told himself it was normal. London tired. Everyone's running on fumes, right? But one night, lying in bed, he felt his pulse racing for no reason. No caffeine, no stress at that moment, just a sudden awareness that something wasn't quite right. His heart thudded too hard. He sat up, hand over his chest, staring at the wall. He considered calling 111, then didn't. He was still functioning, still delivering results, still laughing at memes and meeting deadlines. "I'm fine," he told himself. But his body was telling a different story. It happened at Tesco. Reuben was standing in the self-checkout queue, holding oat milk, protein bars, and 3 discounted meal deals. The fluorescent lights buzzed above. The store felt unusually warmer, maybe he was. He rubbed his temples. His head was pounding, and his vision blurred for a second. "Just low blood sugar," he muttered. "Need to eat." He scanned one item, then the next. Then the world tilted sideways. Darkness. He woke up to beeping. Not a phone, not Slack. A steady, rhythmic beep-beep, white ceiling, IV in his arm, something sticky on his chest. A blood pressure cuff squeezing his arm like it had a personal grudge. A nurse leaned over. "You're awake. Just lie still. You fainted in Tesco. Paramedics brought you in." Reuben blinked. "What happened?" A doctor walked in, clipboard in hand, calm voice, serious eyes. You collapsed due to a mix of exhaustion, dehydration, and underlying conditions. Conditions? Reuben croaked. The doctor sighed. You've got hypertension, your blood pressure's through the roof. Your blood work shows early signs of type 2 diabetes, severe vitamin D deficiency. And based on your reported sleep issues and fatigue, we suspect sleep apnea. Reuben tried to sit up. The wires tugged. I don't understand. I'm not sick. I'm just stressed. The doctor didn't flinch. You're not alone in thinking that, but stress is illness when it lasts this long unchecked. You've ignored the warning signs. This didn't happen overnight. Reuben stared at the ceiling. Could I have caught it earlier? Absolutely, the doctor said. Most of this is treatable. All of it? Avoidable. With a checkup. Maybe some lifestyle changes. You've burned the candle at both ends for years. He left the room. Reuben lay in silence. The ECG continued its impersonal rhythm beside him. A tray of NHS-approved sandwiches sat untouched. His mind buzzed, but not with deadlines or deliverables. Narration, quiet, reflective. I thought the NHS was free, but I've learned being sick still costs you. Time, clarity, energy, income, peace of mind. Even when you're not paying out of pocket, your life picks up the tab. The bill wasn't financial, it was personal. Missed work, lost opportunities, the inability to think clearly, the shame of not seeing it coming, or maybe the guilt of seeing it coming and ignoring it anyway. He looked at the monitor. Beep. He looked at his reflection in the TV screen-drawn face, hollow eyes, an IV where his smartwatch used to sit. For the first time in years, Reuben wasn't checking his phone. He was checking in with reality. The body keeps the score. And Reuben? He was in debt. Reuben sat on his sofa, wrapped in a dressing gown that still smelled faintly of hospital soap. His laptop sat unopened. His inbox had 147 unread emails. He didn't care. Beside him, a plastic NHS folder stuffed with follow-up appointments, blood pressure logs, and a bright yellow leaflet titled Understanding Your Sleep Apnea. On the coffee table, 2 prescription bottles, a vitamin D spray, magnesium tablets, and a green smoothie he wasn't entirely sure how to pronounce. He sighed, picked up his phone, and opened his banking app. £100 lost in cancelled freelance gigs. 320 spent on prescriptions, private supplements, and health gadgets TikTok promised would change your life. 60 on Ubers to the GP because apparently dizziness and the overground don't mix. £0 saved by avoiding that annual checkup. He chuckled dryly. What a bargain. Flashbacks hit, like receipts from a more naive life. That free NHS health check letter he binned 2 years ago. The local Pilates class he laughed off. The gym for new dads that offered the first month free, he'd ghosted the email after signing up. I don't have time, he had said. I'm fine, he had believed. Now, time was all he had done. He wasn't fine. Narration, clear, grounded. I used to think skipping vitamins saved me £10. Turns out, it bought me a £10, zero detour through A, E, fatigue, and fear. He walked to the kitchen and opened the fridge, finally stocked with real food. Actual vegetables. Chiaseeds, things that required chewing and didn't come with a barcode. This wasn't a diet, it was a peace treaty with his body. The silence in his flat felt different now. Not like loneliness, but like clarity. His body had been whispering for years. It had finally screamed. Now, Reuben was listening. He wasn't chasing hacks anymore. He was building habits. One walk, one home-cooked meal, one slow breath at a time. The hustle didn't stop, but the denial did. Sunday morning in Hyde Park. The air was crisp, and the sun was making a rare appearance. Reuben stood awkwardly at the edge of a walking group, wearing brand new trainers that still squeaked. First time? A woman asked, smiling. Yeah, he replied, tugging on his hoodie. Usually I only walk when Deliveroo's late. They laughed, and just like Faith was in. Reuben had never been a wellness guy, but now he was logging his steps, tracking sleep with a free NHS app, and reading labels in the supermarket like they were legal contracts. He'd swapped 5-shot flat whites for peppermint tea. His fridge had kale. He knew what magnesium did. The real plot twist? He'd found a GP. An actual one. With appointments. And advice. And a plan that didn't involve guessing symptoms on WebMD. He made a spreadsheet for his meals, his meds, his mood. And instead of budgeting £100 a month for cheeky Nando's, he started investing it in nutrition veggies, grains, the occasional grass-fed thing. I used to think wellness was some influencer nonsense, green juice and gym selfies, but no, wellness is rent. Rent for staying in this body, and I'd been dodging the bill. The changes weren't dramatic. Not at first. There were still days he hit snooze, still nights he wanted takeout and wine. But now, he paused, checked in, asked his body what it needed instead of what his stress craved. He noticed things. He could climb stairs without seeing stars. He remembered meetings without notes. His face looked less puffy. Reuben wasn't chasing transformation. He was building something better: consistency. He'd stopped treating health like a crisis and started treating it like maintenance, like brushing his teeth. Boring, necessary, life-saving, and it felt good. No dramatic six-pack, no kale evangelism, just less panic, more presence. As he walked through Hyde Park with the group chatting, laughing, moving, he realized something else. This wasn't a punishment for being unhealthy. It was a reward for paying attention. 6 months later, Reuben stood in his kitchen, lining up glass containers like a meal prep monk. Chickpeas sizzled in turmeric and olive oil. Brown rice cooled beside roasted carrots. A smug podcast host was mumbling something about anti-inflammatory living in the background. His Fitbit buzzed in, 0 steps before noon. Narration, wry but wise. They say health is expensive. But you know what's pricier? A hospital bed, missed gigs, prescription cocktails that rival your rent, and that quiet fear your body's quitting before you've finished paying council tax. He stirred with one hand, swiped a notification with the other. GP checkup in 2 weeks. Already booked. I used to spend hours doom-scrolling health symptoms. Now I actually see a doctor before Google. I calendar workouts like I used to pencil in client calls. I budget for broccoli, not Birkin bags. His fridge no longer looked like a sad vending machine. It looked like someone gave a damn. He didn't feel perfect, but he felt present, clear, in charge. Moral: health isn't expensive. Being sick is. Listen to your body while it's still whispering, because once it starts shouting, it charges interest. Call to action: like adult stories that hit close to home, follow for more. Subscribe so you can dodge a future wake-up literally. Be like Reuben but earlier.